Hi, I'm so glad you're all here. It's Deborah Hamilton for the MAAP community call for this Wednesday night. I'm thrilled to see Kieran and Susan and Sally and Connie and Rose because we've made a commitment to our pets to be here in this community and talk about things that are of really important interest to all pet owners who want to make sure their pets are taken care of. So tonight, I am going to check in with Kieran. You haven't called me yet to set up a time to talk, Kieran. So that's not on me. That's on you, my friend. I love you, but you need to set that up for me. So, because I've read your stuff, so I want to talk to you about it. Kieran has a wonderful book that's coming out, sort of a learner's guide for how to be a responsible pet owner. Got some great drawings on it from a colleague of his. So once Kieran gives me the hi ho, I'll send it to everyone who's ever signed up for a MAP community meeting so they can look at it, they can pass it on, they can give comment, because I know Kieran is open to hearing a lot of things that people think are really great about the responsible pet ownership book and study, and maybe even
Mhm.
made it into, you know, a certificate you get so that you're a good and responsible pet owner. I don't think everybody comes by that naturally. I think that people really have to be open to learning and be open to teaching in a way that's supportive and not judgmental. There's an Irish setter on in a shelter in Ohio, and I don't know you, Sally. You've seen Juniper, and he looks like I never feed him a meal in his life. And of course, Athena looks a little thin too because she isn't necessarily, the best of eaters. And when she eats a lot and starts to gain weight, then she has belly trouble. So it's not like you're abusing her at home and tying her outside and not feeding her. However, when people saw this dog at the Ohio rescue, she's young. She's probably about a year or two, and she's thin. And Irish setters drop weight really quickly. So Sally can have Athena up to a great weight, and then she decides to have belly issues and she'll drop really quickly. This dog might have been out for a day or two, who knows, and might have dropped weight. Junie, my young, well, he's 4 now. I mean, I could feed him the legs of the table, and he will look as if he is starved. So, it just is the dog, but we get to that place where we're really judgmental. And I'm working with breeders to have a better conversation with their owners. And I'm working with owners to have a little bit of a stronger constitution. People who work in rescue and people who breed dogs have absolute opinions on how you're supposed to raise your dog. And it's not that they're wrong and you're right, or you're wrong and they're right. It's that there's a sweet spot in between where you're going to be able to live with your dog happily and your dog is going to be well cared for. It may not be that the dog drives in a crate like mine do, or the dogs drive in a seatbelt, or the dogs don't drive in anything, whatever. It's that you understand the ways of doing things. You choose to do it a different way. I know my girlfriend Susie has different things that she does with her dogs, and I go, wow, that's really crazy. But that's the way that makes her happy. And my other girlfriend, when she drives to a dog show, she will go over hill and dale instead of straight. And she said, but that's the way I know how to do it. And so we all have to be a little kinder to each other. And I did a Facebook Live earlier last week. And when I was talking, I started to talk about how when you're looking for a pet, you can go to a rescue, you can go to a shelter, you can go to a breeder. What you're looking for is someone in that facility who's going to help you make this successful.
Mhm.
Right, Kieran? That's what your booklet's all about. Here's a booklet. Go home, read about it. Maybe if you're making an appointment now with COVID, we have to make an appointment to go everywhere. So when you make an appointment, send a copy of this responsible dog ownership booklet to the person and say, this is the minimal type of thing you have to know to do. You have to bring it to the vet. You have to cut its nails. You have to bathe it every once in a while because otherwise it's going to be smelly. You have to check its ears. You have to check its teeth. You have to check its anal glands. I know nobody wants to talk about those, but quite frankly, I don't know about you, Connie, but my breed, and we know from Athena, this is something you have to pay attention to.
Oh,
Susan,
yeah.
Susan has a white dog. There are certain things that you have to do with a white dog to keep their eyes white, to keep their mouth white, right? I mean, you have to do it with your dogs too, because they're beige, right? And they eat
Right.
tomato sauce, and that's a big problem. Irish setters, no problem. No problem. Tomato sauce doesn't bother Irish setters. They have red faces. You can't tell. But
Well,
when
I will tell you that when we trained in obedience in one of our local parks on a parking lot, blacktop. We had a gate over the parking lot. It was terrific for working the dogs off lead. But anybody who had a light colored dog like my Wheatons or yellow labs or anything light would come out of the lesson completely pot black on their bottoms and on their undersides. And in fact, I was telling my best friend this morning about my bottle of spray on waterless shampoo, which was always my go-to after obedience and rally lessons.
Yep.
Because in practice, because they would come back literally pot black. So
yeah,
yeah, you have to worry about that.
you do. And so when you're looking to get a dog, and we know everybody's, really sort of tuned into getting a dog now because of COVID and the beauty of having a dog with you during COVID, whether you rescue it from a shelter or a rescue or you buy it from a breeder, what you want to ascertain is how dedicated are these people to the dogs that they are supplying you with. And I don't mean, do they have a jaws of life grip on the dog so that I know my friend Mary Goki always says I just lend dogs to people, but quite frankly, I don't do that. But she says it because she laughs. But I really am always there. You call me and I'm always there. And today she actually wrote me with a very sad note, which we all know is the note that comes if we're a breeder, that alerts us that one of our puppies has passed away. And I think it's so much harder for me as a breeder to help people help their dogs over the rainbow bridge than to lose my dog and let them go over the rainbow bridge. And I'll tell you why. Because when I hand them this puppy as an 8 or 12-week-old puppy, and they are so excited and they're living such a great life for 10 or 12 or 15 years, right? I know what's coming. So as I'm giving them this beautiful puppy that they're going to spend such great life with, and I'm going to help them have this great life because I'm going to tell them when they're going to be naughty. I usually tell all of my owners, you'll have them for 4 weeks. They will be the perfect puppy. And then
Their
the
teeth.
dev,
Right.
yeah, then the devil comes. I said, and it's all over, but the singing, but you already love them, so you won't throw them in the street, although it does cross your mind 3 or 4 times a day, right, Connie? When they chew your favorite shoes or the sheetrock or whatever they do.
Or my grandmother's antique Stickley cherry,
Yeah,
vintage 1926. Yes.
yeah,
In
of
fact,
course.
young Mr. Casey, who's behind me, is the second male in 2 decades to do that to my
Yeah.
poor grandma's. It's a good thing she was a great dog lover to my poor grandma's sideboard. Yeah.
Well, that's what it was there for, right? I swear to
Right.
God, it's the 5 minutes you're not watching. The 5 minutes when you're on, some podcast like this, and you turn around and the entire leg of the chair is chewed.
Gone.
I have a wonderful table in my dinette that the dogs would sit under there quiet as church mice during dinner. And we were so happy. And we would then, there was a tablecloth on it, right? And then we would look under there and half the leg was gone. That's why they were quiet. They were chewing the legs of the table.
Right.
But here we are. We're preservationist breeders, and we purposely breed our dogs for a reason, and we give them to people, and we stick with you. I absolutely understand that when you buy your dog, it's your dog. I want you to leave me alone. However, my litters go co-ownership; they never go independently. When you take a dog from a rescue or a shelter, you're not independent. You have the dog, yes, but if something happens, you have to return the dog to the rescue. That's what the contracts almost always say. I've never found one that hasn't said that, but there might be one out there. But the most difficult thing is getting through puppyhood and then enjoying that wonderful sweet spot between like age 2 and age 8 or 9. And then you get the little creakies that give you a little bit of a worry. They're not running as far or as long. Some foods might upset their stomachs when they had cast iron stomachs before. I must say that my Roxy threw up a cabbage head full of plastic. I don't know how she got it, but it looked like a cabbage head. And it was plastic. And it must have been down there for a while because it was such a lovely experience to smell it. And she didn't miss a meal. And she didn't miss going to the bathroom. So I don't know when she got it. I don't know how long it was down there. Thank God she threw it up. She didn't act sick. But these kind of things are what happens when they're, a little bit older and they get a little bit naughtier. And then the ultimate, email comes. I always dread. So I have several dogs out there who are 11. And every time I see one of those owners' names come up on my phone, my heart skips a beat because every day is a gift. I always say every day after 10 with an Irish setter is a gift, because you just never know. There's so many things that happened. So some of you know that my Roxy had puppies because I'm 1-800 bad mother. I had her have puppies when she was 9. She was in great shape and she's, tough as nails and she hasn't missed a beat. She's still eating plastic. So we're saying that she's still a puppy. God forbid. Um, but her sister passed away today. So her sister was 10. They just turned 10 in July. And she had hemangiosarcoma, which is, a death sentence. And so the owners took her home and they made her comfortable. And like, 2 or 3 days after the diagnosis, they let her go at home. And the vet was really nice to come over with a mask, PPE on, and let her go in their arms, because that's the other thing that most people haven't realized, that not only is curbside service difficult, some vets are more stringent about saying goodbye to dogs during COVID than others. And it is the hardest thing to do. But as a breeder, you really do stay with your puppies forever. And as I said before, when you're making your plan, remember your breeder, remember your rescue, remember your shelter, ask them for guidance as well. They know that maybe your breeder knows and the rescues know that you're going to do the best you can for those dogs. Enable them to let you find that next caregiver for the pet, and make sure, if you can, and I think I said this last week as well, if your dog is even slightly remotely related to a breed, so it looks like a poodle, it looks like a Westie, it looks like a Coton, it looks like an Irish setter, it looks like a Newfoundland, go to that national club and join it. Usually they only cost about $35 a year. I know, Connie, yours to cost, I think, about 60 a year. They fluctuate.
35,
35,
35.
right. So,
And in fact, I am being the treasurer, God help me. I have dues renewals right here.
right.
So
So,
we're in the throes of it.
yeah. So if you have a dog that looks like a dog, so if you get one of those DNA tests and they say it's part Yorkshire Terrier and it's part Welsh Terrier and it's part Bull Terrier, I wonder what that would look like, but I digress. You should go to all those national clubs and see which dog looks the most like your dog and join them, because they're going to have one thing that you are going to want to read every month or every 3 months when their catalog comes. You're going to want to read the website. They do health research on that breed. So in Irish Setters, we donate tens of thousands of dollars to the AKC Canine Health Foundation. So do the Wheatons, so do the Catons, so does every breed. Donate money to the AKC, because if we pool our money, we get more research done. And there is so much information you can find out about your breed. So even if you have a dog from a shelter, you can educate yourself on what a part poodle might suffer from. And it's, not just hip dysplasia, elbow dysplasia, bloat. It could be a predisposition to Cushing's. It could be a predisposition to PRA. It could be a predisposition to bloat. You just really want to know what that breed is looking at that will keep those dogs safe if you knew about it up front. So if you're going to spend the $25 or however much it is to find out what breeds are in your mixed breed, your American breed or European breed dog, you should then, if you don't want to join all 3 or 4 of them, depending on how many breeds are in your breed, join the one that has the most. So if you have 50% of your dog as a Labrador Retriever, then join the Labrador Retriever Club of America, maybe even the local club. And that's for 2 reasons. Okay, so I always get back around to the MAAP. If you join the club, you're going to meet people with Labradors. You're going to meet people with Golden Retrievers. And you're going to meet people who will know people who will help you place your dog or find caregivers for your dog. It is constant. I will tell you a story. I was rescue coordinator for Irish Setter Club of America, and this was many years ago because I think this was my second litter. So it was 1998 maybe, when I went to Animal Care and Control in Manhattan to pick up an Irish setter. Now, some of you may not know that there is a big difference between an Irish setter and a chow chow. One of the distinctive things between an Irish setter and a chow chow is a black tongue. A chow chow has a black tongue, and an Irish setter has a pink tongue. So even though a chow chow is red and his ears are a little pointy and his coat sort of stands on end, he's still red. So some people might think he's an Irish setter. The telltale is that black tongue. So here I am. I have little puppies on the ground. And if you know anything about breeders who are crazy, which I am, you never want to bring germs into your home if you have little puppies on the ground. But there is an Irish setter in distress in a rescue at Animal Care and Control. And you know what I think about Animal Care and Control. I think it's a wonderful group. It helps get dogs off the streets. It keeps them safe. But I also like to work hand in hand with them to pull the Irish setters out, which makes room for a mixed breed, and also enables someone who's looking for an Irish setter to find one, because we're narrowing that funnel. So it's not like this big funnel of who's going to come and adopt a dog, but rather who's going to come and adopt an Irish setter. And they aren't necessarily, people want to adopt Irish setters all the time. So I drove in and I look at this dog and I look at the guy at Animal Care and Control and I go, "This is the dog, right?" And he goes, "Yep, this is an Irish setter, right?" And I took one look at this dog and I said, "Yep, it's an Irish setter. Where do I sign?" So I took him out, I put him in the back of the car, shut the door, locked the door, started to back up. And I said, "This is your lucky day." I said, "You are going to go to chow rescue right now." I said, "And you're going to find a home with somebody who's looking for a red chow." I said, "Because if I leave you here, I'm not so sure that you will find the right home." And I'm more secure knowing that chow rescue will find you someone who's already had a chow, has a chow already and wants another one, crazy people. So, this is why we do this. This is why we do breed rescue, is because we have lists of people who love to have this kind of dog. And it's not, I want to stress, it's not elitist, it's not, privileged, it's not any of that stuff. It's that if I can remove a dog that I have a home for from a rescue, a shelter, or Animal Care and Control, that makes room for another dog who might be a mixed breed, or might be a dog that's less likely to find a different home. So on that note, I'm going to just segue a little bit to, if you all know, and who's ever listening to this podcast or this community call knows, if there is a breed that you know of that needs a little extra TLC to be placed. So that would be the pit bulls. That would be possibly Doberman pinschers. That would possibly be German Shepherd mixes, or terrier, bull terrier mixes, because they have this aura around them that people are a little afraid to adopt them. They don't know what their history is. They're not puppies usually. They're usually a little older. Most people drop dogs off. And Kieran, stop me if you disagree, or if you agree, add to it. People usually drop them off after a year or two old, because they've either gotten too expensive, maybe they've lost their job, or they never train the dog for the first year. I always tell people to train the dogs while you still outweigh them.
Mm-hmm. I just say there, Debbie, the occurrence of that is so frequent, it's actually frightening, that in any rescue shelter anywhere, the consensus is 50% of the dogs are there because the original owner did not know what they were getting involved in.
Yeah. It's not
simple as that.
It's not a commitment to make lightly, for sure.
Yeah.
I will tell you, having done breed rescue, as you know, for Wheatons who really infrequently wind up in shelters. In fact, we get a lot of dogs mislabeled as Wheaton mixes because of the cachet.
Yeah, those chow chow dogs that look like Irish setters, right?
I actually had a purebred golden mistaken for, called a Wheaton mix from the Orange County shelter, and I called up Southern California Golden Retriever Rescue, and they got this dog out of the shelter 18 hours before it was about to be put down for an owner drop off, because it had a minor medical problem and they didn't want to pay the vet bill.
I have to tell you, so I'm so glad you brought that up because
I wanted to, excuse me, I wanted to go on that when I have been in line to check out a dog, which usually turned out not to be a Wheaton at a public shelter, invariably the most turned in dogs in the line ahead of me to check in, the most turned in dogs in Southern California, 9-county wide area, Chihuahuas, and some kind of a pit bull mix or Amstaffs, bull terriers, the so-called bully breeds, Staffordshire bulls, and but some variant of pit bull was very often the most surrendered, and you could always tell if the more you got into rescue and the more you stood online at the shelters, you could always tell who was an owner surrender dropping off their dogs, but they would always say, I found this stray on the street, but you knew damn well it was their own dog. And that made me absolutely livid listening to that, because these people didn't even have the courage to admit that they were turning in their own dog, that they were irresponsible dog owners. And yes, Deborah, absolutely, usually between 12 and 18 months, dogs are turned in because the owners haven't done the proper puppy socialization, the puppy manners classes, the beginning obedience to make the dog a polite member of their household.
And then they're too big and they're not cute anymore.
Exactly. The same with Wheatons. I mean, by the time a Wheaton gets to be 12 months old, it weighs between 30 and 40 pounds. This is not a small terrier. This is a medium-sized working stock dog. That's what they were purposely bred to do. And they move with lightning speed and with the full force of physics behind them when they decide to jump on you and play. So the old Wheaton greeting, and I'm trying to train my almost 2-year-old out of it still, even though he has his rally novice title on him, he still does the Wheaton greeting. So for people who are not persistent in obedience, for people who do not train from day one when they're puppies, the adolescent period is the most dangerous of all for a puppy, because that's when it gets turned into a shelter.
And I have to say, so what you spurred my brain when you were talking was, I can tell you, and I think Karen will bear this out, and I'm sure most of you will. If you turn a dog in owner surrendered, it has a shorter amount of time to be adopted. If you say, I found this dog in the street, it gets twice the amount of time to be adopted. So some people know that trick and say, I found this dog on the street, so that the dog has 7 days or maybe 14 days to be adopted. If they come in and say, I just can't take care of this dog anymore, and the shelter is full, or the animal care and control is full, then that dog is an owner surrender. They know nobody's looking for it because the person who had it dropped it off. So that dog can be put to sleep much quicker than the dog who's turned in as a lost dog. So some people actually give the dog a better chance to get adopted if they say, I found this dog on the street, even though they know they didn't find it on the street, but at least it gives it another few days to be adopted. And that is really, it's a double-edged sword. It gives the dog a little bit more time, and we all hold them up to how could you do that? But maybe doing that gives the dog a better chance. And that's why I am so insistent, and I write to them all the time, to the bully breeds, to the Chihuahuas, to the people who have lots of dogs that are turned in at shelters, that I would love to, do a fundraiser for the rescues by having the MAAP plan, a short program where they at least know what they're supposed to do, like this community call. And then maybe if they have a short program where they raise, they charge $5 for people to come in, and all that money goes to their rescue, something to have to do with their rescue. Because for me, this is a labor of love. You all know that. So I'm here all the time because I love all of you, and I love the people who listen to this recording, which Rose tells me is phenomenal. I'm thrilled. But we really need to understand that the dogs that are the most vulnerable need to have their owners make a MAAP plan. And as you said, Connie, Chihuahuas, but they're
a bully breed.
and the bully breeds. So before it runs too late, I've already chatted too long and I apologize, but let me check in. Susan, how's everything with you? How are you going with the workshop? Are you getting some things together?
Well, I'm trying to. I did join the Facebook group for the club that my breeder belongs to, and I put out a message, and I got a ton of responses from people. But I said, well, I'm not ready to appoint anyone just yet. But I just want to make a comment. It was interesting to hear you talk about the bully breeds. We listened to a Zoom with a pit bull that was deaf who had become a service dog. And so it's just a shame that dogs are not getting the training they need, because they can have a very fulfilling life doing, I was surprised when I heard about that, but yeah.
It's really strange with bully breeds because, the dogs that were rescued from Michael Vick's dog fighting situation was part of the ABA group's, I guess, mission. And one of our colleagues took those dogs in, sent them to special foster homes, and all of them were trained to be different kind of service animals, different kind of assistance animals, all lived a wonderful life. Not one of them, well, one of them was put to sleep, but he was way far gone with being fearful. So he was put to sleep. But I think there were 25 dogs rescued, of which 24 were rehabilitated and rehomed and lived with other people. So it isn't like if a bully is with someone who's a bad owner, it can't be rehabilitated. It really can, because those dogs don't come out of the womb angry. They become angry because of the owners. And so we should never throw the baby out with the bathwater. We should always be aware of what the limitations might be of those dogs. But you're right. People have who are not as responsible, haven't taken Kieran's test or read his folder so that they can know what responsible ownership is, will not get the dogs to where they need to be. But that doesn't mean that someone who does have experience, or at least wants to learn how to get this dog over the hump, is wonderful. I'm very adverse to judging people. They did the best they could. They just weren't prepared. That's why Kieran's writing his book. I know there's a woman, Janet Longerville, who rescues horses from knackers farms. And she said the one thing she does is she reaches out for the old owners, not to tell them, look where your horse ended up. No, she said, I know that you probably don't know anything about this. And if you do, you didn't really realize what was going on, but this is where he is. I'd love to welcome you back into his life. And every single owner along the line of these two horses, she has Sable and Charger. Charger just was put down last week. This is a cheerful message, but he was put down last week because he was really suffering. And every one of the owners who had been in his life didn't realize that the last one, and even the last one came back and said, I didn't realize that's where he was going. It's one of the three great lies, right? So when your father or mother take your dog and say, I'm taking him to the farm to live his life out in the farm, that's one of the three great lies. That isn't happening.
Yeah.
The other one is the person who says, I'm going to take him up to the country and big fence where all the horses run together and they'll all be happy. Another great lie. So if my mission here is, if you have a horse that really is not rideable or is not feeling well, and you can't hold on to it, consider letting it go. Not because I'm a big proponent of euthanasia, but please don't kick the can down the road, because the horse, unless you keep your finger in the halter, so to speak, so that if you do give it to Kieran, who wants to have it as a lawn ornament outside his house, that if Kieran decides not to, he knows he can call and say, Deborah, no more lawn ornament. I know it's been 10 years, no more lawn ornament. You have to come and get him. And then I would get him, because it's okay for Kieran to have him as a lawn ornament, and he's, well cared for, and he has vet bills and he has food, but then something happened to Kieran's life. And then Kieran says, no, I can't keep him anymore. That's the kind of thing that needs to be done. So Susan, I'm so glad that you're getting some of the work done. And I'm so glad you watched that bully piece, because it really is important to understand that these dogs can be rehabilitated.
Yeah, definitely.
So Sally,
hear about your other dog that died
Oh, Roxy's sister, Lexi, it was terrible. 10 years old. Terrible, terrible,
I'm
terrible.
so sorry.
I know. Thank you. And I'm going to write to her mother, well, Lexi's mother, after we hang up, because, of course, all the puppy owners, if you're a good breeder, you introduce all the puppy owners to each other. We used to have big parties that Sally was a participant in, where all 8 of the dogs would come back and run around the backyard. And every single one of the owners said, when they turned up the hill to my house, every single dog got up and was looking around like, I know this place. I know this place, because I had a significant hill you had to climb before you got to my house, and all the dogs seem to remember. So Sally, how is Athena, speaking of dogs coming home?
Athena's sound asleep. She walked 5 miles today, and it's pretty icy. So I'm like, oh, on the walk, I'm like, just please don't fall, don't fall. But so far, so good.
Yeah, we had a little ice here too, but it all melted. We were at 50 degrees today.
Well, you're luckier than we.
And you're not that far from me. So everyone, you should know that Sally's only about 45 minutes from me. So that line was pretty, because we were 50 degrees today.
Well, so it goes. But we did fine, and we're out in, the sunshine we had walking. So it was a great day.
Perfect. Wonderful. Kieran, how's Tenerife?
Oh, I won't make you jealous. So the less said, possibly the better. But can I finish off with just picking up something Connie said there about people leaving their dogs into shelters, and you'd wonder where's the microchipping system in all of this, and a great failure. But one of the things I've been looking at, and one of the things I do when I'm not working with the dogs, is I talk on cryptocurrencies. And there's an amazing possibility, as soon as the book and everything else is out of the way, I want to work on this simple idea where you could use the cryptocurrency platforms with the microchipping to basically map dogs and their owners in such a way that if there is a litter, each dog in the litter would be digitally connected with every other. So you'd have a situation where at the press of a button, you'd be able to see, if you like, generations of that dog and all the litters, plus the owners, plus the history of the shelter. And I think this is the way to go, rather than hope owners are responsible and then pray there's enough money there for a rescue shelter to do a mopping up job. So as soon as what I'm trying to do is out of the way, this is going to be the next few years' work. And I see the way cryptocurrency is one area, but the big thing is what's underneath it. We're heading for the next generation of the internet. Basically, what the experts are saying is 2.0 internet, and it'll do great things for us. But I would say there's great opportunities to get ahead of the game. And on the other side, I think there's a lot of people in the crypto world looking for places to bring their inventions. And one of the things all investors will say is, we're not interested in a solution to a problem. We want to see a really big problem.
Yeah.
And I think, what Connie's talking about, this is a really big problem.
It is.
And it's just a question of matching the imagination, making things happen. And we could change the way the whole dog world, responsible ownership and shelters behave, possibly forever within a few years. So I won't say that's a big dream. I wrote about this a couple of years ago, and I had quite a few vets in Ireland saying, actually, that's where we should be going. So I'll send you a link to that article.
Because I'd love to have Rose put it up in the MAAP community, because I'm going to reinvigorate the MAAP Facebook page so that we all can join. I think that is fabulous. And what has to happen, and I don't know if they do this in cryptocurrency, what has to happen is that it has to be able to be read by Big Brother, as opposed to relying on someone else to read it. Because I know in the veterinary world, I think we spoke about this at another community call, veterinarians are very loath to scan a dog who comes in with an owner, a new dog that I found on the street, because they don't want to get in the middle of that bugaboo, right? So the dog belongs to Sally, but Connie found it on the street and, put up signs and things and did everything she thought she needed to do, but Sally didn't see them. And Connie's had it for 2 weeks, and now Connie's going to bring it to the vet. Vets don't really want to be in the middle of that Megillah. So when you're looking at the cryptocurrency and the microchipping, being able to run that generational piece is huge. I know that in purebred dogs, we have a lot of internet, which might help you. We have a lot of internet coexistence, right, Connie, where everybody's intersected with everybody else. There are banks everywhere, and the AKC has DNA banks now, and so it's not necessarily the microchip. But if there was a microchip that could be read like our license plates from the sky or something, that might be a little bit more doable, because if we rely on the human element to scan the dogs in shelters and in animal care and control, yeah, that's going to happen. But for the purebred dog world and for people who pick dogs up off the street, not with ill intention, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about people who just find a dog. Like they had that show, they had a piece on the news the other night where some dog was walking down the middle of a highway in the snowstorm in Connecticut. And this woman stopped all the traffic. I think it was on the Merritt Parkway. So you know how safe that was, Sally, not in the snow. She stopped all the traffic on the Merritt and enticed the dog into her car with a taco she had just bought for lunch, and she enticed the dog into the car, and she brought it to the shelter, and it was it's waiting to see if its owner shows up, or she said she would adopt it if the owner doesn't show up. But if we don't have something that's going to enable people to really have their chip scanned, because it was quite an awakening for me when I got into the discussion with veterinarians at the American Veterinary Medical Law Association, that vets really don't want to get in the middle of that. So they will not scan a dog that comes in that was found off the street. And that's a little bit of a glitch in the microchip system. So you have to figure out how to fix that glitch, because I really do want to know if Kieran has my dog. He might be a great home for my dog. I just want to know where my dog is. And there's no way that that really will happen. And of course, I talked the other week about the woman who called all the microchip companies and said the dogs were stolen when they weren't. They were just given away because everybody thought she was going to die. But that's a whole nother discussion that we might have again. But, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we have to figure out how to best use these microchips and best use the information we're going to get from the national clubs. Because, Susan, I'm so glad that so many people responded when you joined the national club, because they really do want to help Catans. And if you bought the dog, which you did from somebody who's a member of the Catan Club of America, you're going to be able to become educated on what's the good health of Catans, what you can do, and also be able to find somebody who's going to be a caregiver who might be nearby.
Yeah, the breeder did respond, and she said, of course she would help. And I knew she would, but it's a question of getting the redundancy set up. And most of the folks who wanted the dog are in California, so we'll see.
Yeah, but that's okay.
A few from New York, a couple from New York. So
listen, if they want it from California, that is absolutely fine. Oh, thank you, Kieran. Kieran put something in the chat box, everyone, if they want to see it.
That's the article.
Perfect. I'm gonna get it, and then I will send it to everyone as well, but it's in the chat box. Yeah. So we're now on 7:13 because of course we ran out of a lot of time, and I apologize. I am so grateful all of you are here. I'll see some of you over the weekend for the last 2 hours of the workshop. And until next Wednesday, take very good care. Kiss your dogs for me, the Wheatons, the Irish, the Catans. And I know you don't have one, Karen, but you will soon, I'm sure.
I have a resident dog outside.
Oh, wonderful. Yay!
This is the dog that will be in the book.
Oh, very good.
You know the story. I think I've told you the story last week about the artist and the dog.
Right. So this is the dog. Well, you'll have to, share a picture with me on the internet so I can share a picture on screen share next time so we can see what your dog looks like, because we have to have Susan share a picture as well, because and Connie, and I have some of Sally's, like a million of Sally's, because we share pictures all the time. So everybody send me a picture. So next week we can put maybe our dog pictures up instead of our pictures.
That works.
Works.
All right, guys, have a great week. I look forward to seeing you all next week. And until then, take very good care. Take care of your dogs, take care of yourselves, stay safe. And thank you so much for being part of the MAP community. This is Deborah Hamilton of Hamilton Law Mediation. Why Do Pets Matter, the podcast. And of course, this wonderful MAP community. Take care, everyone.
You too, Deborah.
Bye.
Talk
Bye.
soon.